talk about missing people, specifically cases of missing people that involve strange occurrences and encounters. And we have several encounters for everyone tonight, all of our listeners, and a lot of creepy stories. Before we actually jump into the encounters, we were sent kind of a strange encounter from Texas involving a 15-year-old boy. Will, do you want to tell the audience about that encounter?
Yeah, I was sent anonymously. What the situation was a teenage boy was riding his bike home one evening just a few days ago, and this particular road that he was riding his 10-speed on is only sparsely lit by street lights. It's probably, one of those areas where they don't put the lights out there because of the cost, and it's only at safety points when they need like curves in the road, things like that. So he didn't really hear anything, but he got the feeling that he was being watched. So he stopped his bike and he turned around and he said 15 to 20 feet behind him was this gorilla. So it really scared him because of the size and everything. So he tried to take off on his bike, and by that time the thing had grabbed the back of his bike and with such force that he was thrown over the handlebars off the bike. And when he got up, the thing was staring at him and was flexing its lips up and down, showing his teeth. Well, he took off running, called the authorities, who responded, and during the course of the questioning, the kid repeated that what he saw was a gorilla, and he didn't realize they got that big. So they took him out to the location where he said this happened, and they found his 10-speed bent. The frame was bent and 10 feet up a tree. So I was a little curious about the lip flexing behavior. I hadn't really heard that. Usually we hear reports of people talk about seeing them do something with their mouths. It's usually showing it their teeth. Well, he did say, after some clarification, that it did show its teeth when it was flexing its lips up and down. So I contacted our anthropologist friend Mark Dobbs and asked him about that, and he said, this is one of those compelling little clues that tells me that the hoax is unlikely, since primates, especially old world monkeys and the great apes, have very large canines that are used primarily as weapons when fighting over females or protecting territories in order to scare off competing males. He says that scaring them away is safer than actually fighting, which is true in the animal kingdom. If an animal gets in a fight with another animal, one or both creatures could wind up dead. So trying to scare off an enemy or a rival is much preferred. He says males will often do what's termed a lip flip at each other. The lip flip bears the canines, thus showing their size, warding off the rival. And he says that if someone told me that large non-human hominid threatened someone, I would be expecting to hear that its lips were flexing up and down, which is exactly what we had in this case. And on a little bit of a side note on that, I contacted our friend Mr. Black, and I know everybody likes to hear when Mr. Black has something to say. And I want to get some clarification about, because we hear different accounts where people say the creature they encountered had large canines and some didn't. So through the course of our conversation back and forth, I said, well, what you're saying is the type 1 Patterson-type Sasquatch and the type 4s have square teeth, more like ours, and not large canines. And the type 2 and 3s do have the large canines. He said, absolutely correct. And a little clarification on the, and so what I was getting around to there was what happened there was this young man encountered, he my immediate thought was like, sometimes you'll be riding a bike somewhere, and for some reason, it'll tick a dog off. It's not necessarily the person on the bike, but whatever the bike is doing, the dog doesn't like it, they'll bite at the tires and such. And I thought, well, maybe, for whatever reason, maybe the bike pissed this thing off. Didn't care about the kids so much, but got ticked off the bike. Now, when they pulled the bike down, there was a little blood on the back of it, apparently where this thing had grabbed it, so maybe that's why it bent the bike and threw it up in the tree. I don't know.
Oh.
But there was, and in that case, everybody's going to say, well, how come they didn't do DNA test? Well, for law enforcement, it either has to be some kind of a legal violation, and the cost of the consideration here, because it's $1,000 for a DNA test. So, it's just not something that's warranted by law in this case.
Poor kid. That's a terrible encounter.
It was, very traumatizing.
Yeah.
We gotta get that kid on the show.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear that story firsthand.
Poor guy. Had to go through that. Then his bike's wrecked and 10 feet up a tree. That's terrible.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of, in the Missing 411 books, there's a lot of strange encounters. If you guys, and I know probably a lot of our audience is aware of the Missing 411 books, but as you read through the encounters, there's a lot of strange disappearances. And a lot of the disappearances, people are either found dead or alive, and they're missing all their clothes, and they're missing their shoes. And when I first heard that, I thought, that's really odd behavior. I wonder why they take their clothes off. I wonder why they're finding these people, miles away from where they were abducted and missing all their clothes and shoes. And I came across a story in Southeast Asia. And I'm going to tell you this story before I play the encounter, just so everyone understands this isn't like flute player magic stuff. In Southeast Asia, this group was out in the forest. The main person in the group was ahead of the group by about 20, 30 feet. And they're walking through the forest, and they hear growling from a tiger. The main guy that it was directed to, that was ahead of everyone on the trail, he started walking. He started walking towards the growling. And it wasn't until everyone grabbed him and pulled him back and basically got him out of whatever he was doing. Said, hey, what are you going towards the growl? And he claims he never heard the growl. He said he felt really hot and he felt kind of euphoric, like happy, and he never heard the growl from this tiger. And we know that tigers give off infrasound. We talked about it on a show, gosh, I think it was like episode 7. We talked about infrasound. But I tell you that story to keep that in mind when you listen to this encounter. This is an interview we did earlier in the week with a gentleman by the name of Gord. And it's the strangest encounter story I've ever heard. But take a listen.
Okay, well, I'm a mountain biker. I competed. I'm a medalist. All the history goes back, but it keeps me training at altitude all the time. And nobody would ride with me, so I was always alone. And I always heard the screeches. I always thought they were a raven. I describe it as some witch yelling at me from the hillside. But I always thought ravens, and never ever came to me until I heard one recording you guys have on your show. So I went, whoa, wait a minute. And I started just listening to the show. That's what happened. It was because of the Survivor Man thing. But other than that, Bigfoot was absolutely not a part of my life, vocabulary, or anything. I rode mountains, I swear 100,000 kilometers, and I've been face to face with bears, cougars twice. I almost hit one on my bike. It was so close. And not once did I ever smell a thing when I was close to them, but I always smelled that horrible stink of dead, wet dog, but never saw a thing. And then when that stench came out in the stories that I was hearing on your show, then it snowballed into this avalanche right now while we're on the phone. So basically, I started riding Mist Creek. It was a trail I heard about. We had to get going on this one, and it was an exciting backcountry. It's about a 2-hour drive from Calgary. first stopped, it wasn't where it was anything tough to ride. Usually if that's the case, I'll try it anyways. If I miss it 3 times, then I walk it. With that, I stopped and instantly I started hearing something to my left. It was loud, but it just kind of blanked out on me. I started just thinking water. I just said that sounds like water to me, but really what I was hearing was swaying, deep, loud, nasty growling right to my left. It was about 10 feet into the bush, and there's no way it was uphill from me, but when I went back there, that spot, it goes downhill. So whatever it was either in a tree swaying back and forth, or it was above me swaying back and forth, growling. But I just remember going, it's water. I instantly overheated and started to undress. That's all I know. I got halfway off my clothes. The only thing I was left in was a soaking wet short-sleeve jersey. My friends came down. It was a 4 or 5 degrees Celsius day, which, Fahrenheit comes to about 42 degrees, maybe. And it's not a warm day, especially when you're soaking wet and sweaty clothes from climbing for 5 hours. I was soaking wet. They came up to me and said, "What are you doing?" And that splash, when Dave went through that water, I realized something. And I went, "Whoa, there's growling." That's when I remembered that growling. Instantly, when that splash woke me out of my peaceful little slumber next to a watering hole somewhere in Oasis land, because I was not there. I have no recollection of the time I stood there, but that growling, whatever it was, I totally disregarded it, just started stripping my clothes off for no reason. Shannon asked me, yeah, I probably would have been naked had I not had a small pack that wouldn't fit my coat, because I was struggling trying to get the coat in that pack. An impossible feat. The coat was huge. There's no way it would fit in that pack. So they said, whatever. Dave said bullshit. He called bullshit right away about me saying about the growl, because he goes, "You're just trying to scare me. I'm tired of this. I've done this all day. I've had enough." And Lori looks over at him and goes, "I believe him, because I've never caught the guy on a downhill." And he looked at me like, and I went, "Yeah, I'm not joking.